Welcome back. I hope you're ready. I have the proof. You have the popcorn. I have an annoying voice, and you're very patient. But you know it's worth it, and I will deliver on my promise. Now, I hope you already watched part 1, where we discussed Jim's background. But if you didn't, here's a little recap. In order to uncover a cheater, you have to examine his behavior. And based on what we see, we establish that Jim is a liar, he's a bully, he's manipulative, and he's an abusive partner. If you don't agree with any of these points, go watch part 1 of this video and see for yourself. And I really hope they haven't taken that video down, because I make a very compelling case, and I feel like everyone should get to see it. But I'm going to assume that it has been taken down. My first point was that he is a bully, and he's got all this pent-up aggression / frustration that he likes to take out on Dwight. And while most of the pranks are childish and very petty, he also comes up with these very elaborate pranks. The ones that require a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, a lot of time and effort, and they tend to be very cruel. And for a good guy, that's just unsettling to me. And I didn't even mention how many times he bullied Michael. And yeah, Michael is an ignorant idiot, but that's your boss, dude. You can't be that condescending to him. I mean, he does it right to his face. Michael is just another outlet for Jim's aggression. And just like Dwight, we ignore it because Michael, even though he has a good heart, he tends to say very stupid and very uncomfortable things. Some of those things are not acceptable nowadays. My next point is that Jim is a pathological liar. By now, nobody can disagree with me. It has been well documented that yes, Jim is a liar. I mean, this guy does it all the time. Yes, we all lie. Sometimes it seems like he would rather lie than to take accountability for his actions, or just to make a decision. When he decided to join Athleen, we know he had a conversation with Pam and they both decided that he wouldn't do it. And he agreed to the terms. Then he decides to go ahead with it behind Pam's back and just lie to her face. If he had more conviction, he could have put his foot down and say, "Hey Pam, I'm doing this and you have to be behind me." But he's not an alpha male. He would rather do it the coward way. Say yes to your wife, put your tail between your legs, and do what you do best. Lie until you get your way. That to me is being a coward and having a very dysfunctional relationship. My next point is that he's very manipulative. We see this behavior come out when he's pranking Dwight, but mostly in his relationships. He convinces Katie to go on a boat with him, and we know he's doing this just to get Pam jealous, and then he just dumps her. He then convinces Karen to move to Scranton, and again, he just dumps her, and he even uses his children to get away with things. Looking at you, Season 8, Episode 13. Jim has to get his way. There's no two ways around it. And my last point is his lack of morals. Not only does he go after Pam while she's engaged, you see him being abusive with her after they get married. You know, after he lies to Pam about Athleen, manipulates David Wallace into letting him work part-time at Dunder Mifflin, and he does this by telling him a lie. Remember, he tells him that Phyllis and Stanley had agreed to cover for him while he's gone. And when we hear from a co-worker at Athleen, we get a hint that he has been lying over there too. Someone tells Pam, "Hey, Jim talks about you all the time," and something like, it's too bad he still has to work part-time at Scranton. She replies by saying that she thinks of Jim as working part-time in Philadelphia. And this guy says, "Well, we can't wait until you move here." Pammy is just going along with the ride. She realizes that she has no choice. She has no say in this relationship. Her husband has been deciding for her since the moment they met. Remember that bit with Toby when he says, "If I didn't do certain things without telling Pam, she'd be married to Roy." God damn, right? He then decides to buy a house, again without telling her, and ultimately he decides to start that new business in Philadelphia, behind her back, as usual. But to make matters even worse, he makes her cry when he misses Cece's recital. Yeah, Pam should have known how to work a camera, but he's such a crappy dad. And yes, that's the way it is most of the times. You can either be a really good businessman or a really good dad. And he's choosing to be a good businessman. Could make him feel guilty that she's at home taking care of both kids while she has to keep a full-time job. but she's trying to be a good wife. She's trying to be a good mom. Jim, on the other hand, explodes because he missed a recital. And there's a lot of more things that he's gonna be missing. So you can bet that he's gonna be yelling at Pammy whenever she drops the ball, always highlighting her mistakes, even if he's the one that put them in that situation. And that is psychological abuse. One more thing that I want to mention, it's how impulsive Jim is. He breaks up with a girl in the middle of a date. He kisses a woman that's about to get married. He moves cities because he gets rejected. He drops out of consideration for a job. During the interview, mind you, walks out of there, breaks up with Karen like it's not big deal. Later on, he just proposes to Pam in the middle of the rain, again just out of impulse. I think he felt like Pammy was having too much fun by herself and he just wanted to seal that deal before she got away. Buys a house, starts a new company. He makes life-changing decisions without giving it a second thought. And with all that in mind, let's talk about the one impulse that everyone likes to ignore. The devil herself, Kathy Sims. When they first introduced Kathy, we know that Pammy is jealous. She even asked Jim if he thinks Kathy is good looking, and our good Jim, as usual, lies to her face. She is onto him though, and teams up with Dwight, who says, I don't think Jim is lying. I know Jim is lying. We then see Jim flirt with Kathy a little bit. Pam acknowledges this because she says, why is he making her laugh so much? She knows his MO. He's not athletic, he doesn't have a lot of money, all he has is humor, and that's how he gets the girls. But at the end of the episode, we end up feeling bad for Jim because, oh, he's got high blood pressure, boo-hoo, so do I. And for the next 3 episodes, we see no contact between the two of them. Pam is on mat leave, Jim talks about how much he misses Pam, and Kathy even asked to move away from Jim and Dwight's clump. Because, to nobody's surprise, those two are very annoying together. They're always pranking each other. The first time we see Kathy's interest in Jim is on episode 12, Pool Party. And I don't know if she's supposed to be drunk, but she makes this one comment that pisses me right off. When Aaron asks her to come into the pool and play with them, Kathy says, "Where's Jim?" And she says it in a very familiar tone. Almost like they're friends, even though we haven't seen any chemistry between the two of them, at least on screen. For the next couple of episodes, we barely see Kathy at all, and she barely says anything until the end of episode 14. All expenses paid. Yeah, Jim's gonna be there. That marriage is no good. Nobody knows better than me. Then the friend says something and she responds with, "Definitely we will." It's 3 weeks in Tallahassee. What else is there to do? And the conviction in her voice really pisses me off. First of all, what makes someone say that marriage is not good? Who the hell do you think you are? And then she says, nobody knows better than me? Bitch, I don't even know your last name. But that's what worries me. What does she know? How does she know? What makes her think that she knows better than anyone about their marriage? What are the cameras not showing us? Is this an Easter egg? We supposed to follow the trail? Did they hide this on purpose? And she also says that classic Jim line, "Definitely we will." That sounds like mirroring. You know, when you start to do the same thing as your partner or someone that you spend too much time with, you start to say, think, and sound like that person. And then she says, "It's 3 weeks in Tallahassee, what else is there to do?" Well, that tells me that she's very immature and probably not very bright. On episode 15, we get a quick glimpse of what rooms everyone's staying in. And Kathy's room, I believe, is a single bed. Which is weird because Aaron has a room with 2 twin beds. So why couldn't they just share? But I know what you're gonna say. Everybody else has rooms that have single beds. So I guess it's not that odd that Kathy has her own room and I'm probably just being paranoid. On episode 16, that's where we see Kathy really hit it on with Jim. And how I know that they're spending time together because of this line that Jim says himself. Kathy? Yeah, she's great. I thought I was gonna be hanging out with Stanley, but he's turned out to be a loose cannon. That line right there, that tells me that for sure he's hanging out with Kathy. Dwight is too busy with Packer and Nellie. Aaron is busy with Ryan, which I think they use as a distraction. Like, hey, look at this, Ryan is up to it again. this is the storyline that we want you to follow. And then we see Stanley with another woman. And then there we see Kathy go to Jim's room with the excuse that the AC is off in her room or whatever. Now, if you pay attention, you see why Jim does what he does. Stanley comes into the room, right? So Jim realizes, hey, Stanley might blab about it, especially because Stanley actually tells him, be careful, it gets easier and easier. So he assumes that Jim is about to cheat on Pam. And up to this point, maybe Jim wasn't thinking about it, but he knows that, okay, Stanley saw me, so there's a witness. And at that point, Jim could have said, you know what? He could have left the room and tell Stanley, yeah, she's just in my room, which is weird, I'm just gonna go to the bar. But he goes back into the room. And at this point, he needs to create a scenario where he looks innocent and guilt-free. And in comes Dwight with the camera crew. Now, why would Jim go out of his way to get more people involved? Why does he put up this big show, this big performance? Because he knows that now the camera for sure will record the follow-up, and he's ready to put up the performance of his life. And remember, just like in his pranks, he's very methodical. He thinks about everything. He uses psychological warfare. He gets his way and he always ends up looking good. Keep in mind that he could have just left. He could have gone to the bar and helped Dwight get that VP position. Heck, he could have just gone to the bar and drink. But no, Jim has just planned something better. And things escalate, right? Kathy gets in the shower and then she gets into bed with her underwear. And like I said, Jim at this point knows that the camera will record this. So he goes again out of his way to make that skank look like a skank because she's a hoe. But you never want to see a sister humiliated on TV, so not cool. Again, thanks Jim. So then Dwight comes in again, sprays a bunch of chemicals on her, and he tells Jim, you shouldn't stay in your room, you probably should bunk with Kathy. But at the end of the episode, they make us think that Jim ends up with Dwight. We even see Nellie go to Dwight's room, but he just ignores her. So it all's well, it ends well. Well, no. Enter episode 17, or as I like to call it, Exhibit A. Nobody has mentioned this episode. This episode that I call The Look. And here it is. This is the look that I'm talking about. Who the hell looks at another guy like that? That blatantly. She looks at him like, yeah, baby, I want that dick again. She almost licks her lips. And Jim looks nervous. See his face. He's like, oh, God. And at first I said, okay, calm down. Just look at the whole episode. Maybe there's something else. There's gotta be a reason why this hoe is looking at him like that. So I went back and I rewatched it and I rewatched it. And a couple of times at the beginning I thought, okay, it's because Dwight had just given them some clips about bloggers and their information, right? So I thought, okay, maybe she's looking at him because he only gave them one to share, and she's like, yes, you have to share with me and then you have to talk to me. I have something that you want. But no, I kept on watching it and pausing and very meticulously look at everything, and you can see that every single person has a booklet of their own. So then why the hell is she looking at him like that? Why is this hoe looking at this merry man with those hungry eyes? To quote Sterling Archer, she's giving off a cock-hungry vibe. I mean, look at this woman. Even if you have a crush on someone, you don't look at them like that. Like, they make eye contact. And then Jim looks at the camera like, did you get that? Shit. Never mind, just ignore it. I know I'm putting words into his eyes, but you can tell. There's some friction in there. There's a reason why she looks at him like that and why he looks away worried. Those are crazy eyes. She almost looks pleased. Why would she look at him like that when he treated her like shit the night before? Remember? He got Dwight to dump a bunch of dangerous chemicals on her, all over her. She ended up leaving the room with a blanket around herself. In her underwear. What could she possibly be so pleased about? The guy threw you out of his room while the cameras were rolling. She could see that the cameras were recording that, and she got rejected in front of everyone. What happened after? What happened that they're not showing us? Later on the episode, Jim has to do Ryan's presentation because Ryan gets scared and he runs away. And here you see Kathy do a different look. And you know what I see? Loathing. She loathes Jim. It's one of those blink and you'll miss it moments. What's with the sudden change of heart, Kathy? Sure, Jim looks really silly with that makeup and that white suit, but the presentation itself is not that bad. It gets a fairly positive reaction. And as you see on episode 18, Kathy actually ends up staying with Dwight to make the presentation of the final project to the higher-ups. So if she didn't like the project, she could have just come back to Scranton with Ryan, Stanley, or hey, even hitch a ride with Jim. But no, she stays there. So that look of disgust, it was for Jim. To me, it looked like she found him repulsive. She was completely turned off. After this episode, we never see or hear anything about Kathy ever again. So what do you think? Did Jim, the practical joker, pathological liar, manipulative lover that acts on impulse, meticulous planner, and womanizer, could he have done it? Could he have cheated on Pam? To me, the answer is absolutely he did. Alright guys, thank you for watching, and remember, don't be basic.